Hello there, it's Josh here from racingtoprofit.co.uk. As always, I hope you can see me in the bottom right hand corner if you so wish, but at least hopefully you can hear me. The purpose of this video is for me to whiz through a few of the horses and handicap hurdle winners from last year's Cheltenham Festival, just to kind of put some meat on the bones, I suppose, of some of the things I've discussed above within this blog post and this article. That idea of, well, looking at how to find winners in handicap hurdles at the Cheltenham Festival, which, while of course is still challenging and difficult, there are a few pointers to look for. As discussed above, we have a unique situation at Cheltenham, and certainly some of the big festivals, but Cheltenham in particular, given how much of a stamina test it can be, and given the relentless pace they can go within handicap hurdles, that tapping into stamina, which the horses may not have been able to show either at all in their careers yet, or not for a long time, and certainly possibly running in a big field for the first time, which yes, taps into that stamina because of the pace they're going and the nature of the track, and B, can help a lot of horses settle that may not have been able to settle pottering around in kind of small field novice hurdles or whatever for most of the season. And yeah, that pace just allows them to kind of relax into their racing and actually finish off their races properly, and do what they're meant to. So that's often why some of the improvement can come about, as well as the fact that they are, well, in normal seasons, can be turning up on better ground than they've been racing on. It's rarely worse than soft at Cheltenham, although at times it was bad, and well, pretty bad last year. Many of these would have, in a normal jump season, been running on a lot of heavy ground, kind of between November, December, January, and February. That isn't something we necessarily have this season, so we'll see how that plays out. But with that said, and again, just touching on some of the things above in this article, I do think the people are as, or can be as, important as the actual horses. Certainly the trainers, the jockeys, and to a lesser extent the owners. And when I talk about owners in handicaps, I'm mainly talking about Gigginstown. the this may be a year when Gigginstown or Gordon Elliott don't do that well in handicaps, and probably God help us all if that's the case, but we shall see on a race by race basis. So the first thing, let me go back to the Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle. By this point last year, Gordon Elliott had already been having quite a stunning week. So had the owners as well. This race now is quite a tight handicap where ratings don't really matter as such. It can just be, I think, the best horse on the day winning. Of course, you do need something in hand, but yes, it's quite a tight handicap. So you can look more at, I suppose, a horse's suitability to conditions. But blow by blow, if I just open him up quick, let me check the clock. 3.5 minutes down, not too bad. I'm in the excellent gg's.co.uk, I should say, which I always do when using their good stuff in these videos. The best racing tools in the game, and of course you can take a 30-day trial for £1 just below, and now is perfect timing because for that £1 you would get access for festival week, so that would be quite good. Anyway, back to blow by blow. So bringing together some of those things I discussed, his win is here, as you can see, in the Martin Pipe a few runs ago. What did I want to point out? Well, firstly, he came here in form actually, which is never a bad thing at the Cheltenham Festival. And it was a graded, small field graded novice race, which I do like looking for that kind of form, because it does indicate they have a touch of class. I can't remember if at the time any horses had run since and kind of subsequently won. As it's turned out, that wasn't a bad race. But small field kind of novice graded form does indicate you do actually have a touch of class and a change of gear, which can be important. So he came here in form. If I look back, the race before that in Navan was a grade 1 where he may just have been outclassed, but in any case, he might have been being prepped. And again, this horse knew how to win. And again, back to that touch of class issue, he won the Punchinstown uh, champion bumper, which indicated he had some ability and that he was a stayer in the making. Then he returned at Fairyhouse. This form was interesting at the time from, well, I'm trying to remember, I think it was, because I also tipped the second in this, who was the second, or the horse he was second to in this race as well, Discorama. That indicated that big fields weren't the problem. And finding horses that have the ability to handle that hustle and bustle of a big field can be important. And secondly, even if it's in a maiden hurdle, and secondly, like I've discussed before, the bigger fields can be normally, especially at Cheltenham, a slightly stronger tempo, going a few strides quicker, allowing horses to actually travel in their comfortable rhythm, settle and finish off their races properly, which, as I said, they may not have been able to do at times. That clearly isn't the case with this one. This horse was clearly versatile, but you can see the kind of common themes there. This horse clearly had ability. It had demonstrated a touch of class at kind of graded level, both in his bumper and on his run before this. He demonstrated an ability to handle and thrive in a kind of big field. And then you had the fact that it was Elliott. It was Gigginstown. It was a race that he'd won the previous year. I think with Champagne Classic from memory was that this race. And I was lucky enough to land on him as well. And yeah, all those things came together to indicate that he might still be well handicapped in relative conditions. And pace-wise as well, he was actually one to travel kind of up there in a race, not necessarily with loads and loads of out-and-out pace, where it may not have been wise to have been held up totally out the back. So they were positives for him. Because I liked him, and because of that maiden form, I did tip Discorama as a rare each way bet. I normally go on the nose, but he was 40 to 1. He was beaten. What was he beaten in the end? 5 lengths, so that was okay. One of my members, because it's rare I tip 2. I kind of either tip 1 horse or kind of 3 sometimes in these handicaps. One of my members, Chris, did the forecast and copped about £11,500 for, I forget what it was, £50 bet, or did he put 100? I don't know. That was quite a lot of money to put on the forecast, but he was quite happy. As an aside, sadly I didn't do that. Anyway, yes, because I liked Blow by Blow, and this horse had beaten him in a maiden big field, and this was Blow by Blow was running in a big field for the first time since that Fairyhouse maiden, which intrigued me. And it did look like he was held up in some of these small fields where they pottered around, in heavy, deep ground, in novice races where he might have been bumping into better horses, etc. And of course, this may have been a plan since that maiden win. And I thought he looked interesting at 40 to 1, given I liked the horse who was kind of 12. So that race turned out quite well. So that's Blow by Blow. So I tick round to 8 minutes. Blueberry. So Blow by Blow was one of my 2 handicap hurdle winners out of the 5 races last year. Blueberry at I think I tipped him at 25s. He was then available at 28s, and his Betfair SP was 32s. I forget what other one I tipped in here, but in this race he beat Top of the Game, who's turning out into quite a good horse as well. And that one might be interesting as the RSA, the aim with that, given he has Cheltenham form. But Blueberry, this is another one. Again, we've got People, we've got Mullins. The Coral Cut, I forget if he'd won this, but he'd certainly had a lot of placed horses in this, and this might have actually been his first win in kind of recent years in this race at the time. I forget, that's certainly true for one of the races. It may well be this one. Again, so what I'm looking at here, you'll probably see what I've focused on. Just, you know, I've got in my mind the connections. I should also say, and I don't worry about jockey bookings as much with Mullins, certainly in handicap hurdles, although kind of always noting anything Paul Townend might be getting on, because he's class, and I'm not sure Ruby at times necessarily is that fussed about handicap hurdles as such. But in any case, this was an example again of a decent pace, a big field, um, kind of unlocking something that hadn't been seen yet within this particular horse. But again, I mean, you look back and I think, how on earth was he put in at 28? So he was put into a listed National Hunt flat race at Newbury. That might indicate that he had some ability, or there was just space in the horse box, maybe, who knows. Then he fell, then he clearly had a problem, possibly because he was given 310 days off, but he returned to win. So he was going away at the finish in a 16 furlong maiden hurdle at the time. I think that had already produced some winners, as you'd expect, because it was a year before this, so there might have been some strength to that form to a degree. Then he won a listed, then he won a grade 2. So again, another small field, winning or running well or winning a grade 2, grade 1 novice hurdle is a good indication for how some of these horses may go, or whether they've got the ability to run well in a handicap hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. So he won there after his 300-day break. Then he ran well. Then he finished in the grade 1 at Punchestown, where he was, he wasn't tailed off. He was keeping on. That might have been on better ground than he wanted, as you can see there, but they clearly thought something of him. Then had a 281-day break. I would like to think at this point, before this first run at Leopardstown, that was the plan. So we have a run, we blow the cobwebs away. You can see there, and I watched this video back, he was still going well before 2 out, ridden, and no impression of rear mid division between last 2, 1 pace after. So he showed some form up to 2 out. It wasn't like he was completely tailed off at the back of the TV and you're properly guessing whether or not he had any ability or trying to get a handle on this run and whether or not he really needed it. But it was good to see him run well up to a point in that race. He's getting older. We know he's got ability, and a big field isn't a problem. And now he does something different. Yes, he tried 20 furlongs at Punchestown. That was on good. It was in a grade 1. He stepped up in trip here, and he had run a few times in the past to suggest that he wouldn't mind getting further. And I forget what age he would have been when he won this 25 run, the 16 furlong soft heavy at Fairyhouse Maiden. But that would indicate that 21 furlongs was probably within range. And it was a reason for why he may suddenly improve and tap into stamina that as yet we hadn't actually seen, certainly in open company or handicap company. And the rest is history, as they say. That was a very close humdinger up the line, and thankfully I'm glad he held on. But you can build up the picture there. People, connections, the way in Mullins was clearly having a good week as well, and then you can see those different factors that I've just discussed. I'm taking around to 13 minutes. I will keep this under 20, hopefully. I want to touch on Veneer of Charm. I was nowhere near him. Some of the things I should say about those first 2 winners, they both appeared, I think, certainly Blueberry did, and I'm doing this from memory, on my stats and trends shortlist for the race. I don't try, well, there's about 5 or 6 of them in that, but I like that as a starting point for what is a winning profile for that race, using my unique approach to stats and trends. Blow by Blow, I think, did, but he certainly both appeared on some different stats angles of mine. And Blueberry at the time, I think Townend was down to ride, I believe, and then he got injured, and then Mark Walsh got on. But he hit a Townend angle, which was interesting. Blow by Blow hit a few Gigginstown angles that I have for the festival, and Gordon Elliott. But in any case, so there was some stats foundation as well. So the people, the stats, the trends race stats, and then looking at the horse with all of the things that I've just discussed. Gordon Elliott, Jack Kennedy. I need to pay more attention to what Jack will ride this year. Note to self, as well as obviously Davy Russell, the master of Cheltenham and in handicap hurdles, as you can see from the stats above. Veneer of Charm, I was nowhere near, to my annoyance, because he was a Gordon Elliott horse at 33 to 1 in the handicap at Cheltenham. And I didn't really give him the time of day. Lesson learned. Mullins, Elliott, any big field horse in a handicap, and especially a handicap hurdle, big price horse, sorry, in a handicap hurdle, they need some attention. they should be opened up like this and looked at within whatever race card tools you use. What we're going to say about him here, clearly this is a fairly unique race. The Fred Winter Juvenile Handicap Hurdle used to be the Novice Juvenile Handicap Hurdle, but in any case, both of Elliot's winners of this race from 13 runners, and I'm sharing a hallowed members stat with you, both had one win only to their name in handicaps, and I think both of those were wins on the flat, as you'd expect in this race. So being a juvenile hurdle, most of them will have run on the flat, or plenty of them anyway. In any case, so I wasn't anywhere near him. You can look back, and you should always want to try and learn about what we can improve on. Actually, looking back at this, the first thing that jumped out at me, and might jump out at you if looking through this, having kind of absorbed hopefully some of the nonsense I've been talking about, is that win at Navan. 3-year-old handicap, field size, 22 runners. When they do that, this would indicate that he is a horse which might need to settle, might like a strong gallop to be seen to his best. And actually that was then the first time in certainly 20 runners plus that he returned for this handicap hurdle at Cheltenham. You had to, he had been pottering around, he showed some ability here. 16 furlong, soft, heavy one, a maiden hurdle. So he showed some ability there. Then he had a small field that might not have been ideal, or for whatever reason. Then heavy ground, Navan. It's worth sometimes looking through these races to see what horses were in and around them in some of these novices, because there could be some very good horses that may well have been running or will be running at Cheltenham in graded races in this week. So that's always interesting. Yeah, so he'd shown some ability, held up in rear. The heavy ground here and the way this race was run might not have suited either. In any case, he looks like he improved a bit for this better ground, and the fact that Gordon Elliott and it had a little bit of a break. That run at Navan came 6 days after that Fairy House run. He'd had 3 runs in quick succession. He could have actually just been tired there. So always trying to find if there's valid excuses for that kind of recent run, especially if they've shown some ability, as we've seen here. He clearly had the ability to handle a big field, and it might tap into more, which it did do, and he kind of was ridden out. He hasn't really done much since, has he? But in any case, yeah, so that was that. What else do I want to focus on? Yeah, I was nowhere near that winner. Turning Gold, I think, was my pick in that, who I, to my shame, left when he won at Leicester. He was kind of 12s and hacked up. But never mind, he ran an honourable 5th that day. Deltawork. Now, this one was another one I left, but Davy Russell on. It's the same people. I know I'm focusing a lot on the Irish here. I will focus on one of the English winners in a bit. The Irish have tended to farm these in recent years. Whether or not this strange season and whatever impact that might have, I'm trying to think of some logic, but maybe some of the British trainers might do better. The likes of the Hobbs Yard are clearly going better than they were last year. Nichols is on fire. Will it be his year in some of these handicap hurdles that he has won before? Wouldn't surprise me at all. But then Mullins and Elliott are flying along in any case, as always. Deltawork, what do I want to say about him? I don't think I was near him, but again, looking down here, Punchestown, he'd won easily 20 lengths, big field, maiden hurdle. You don't necessarily need to worry about the quality of these. You don't have to go, oh, it might have been rubbish. So that, just on this example, I'm just focusing on the fact that he clearly has the ability to win a big field race or compete in one, tapping into stamina, letting him settle, etc. This is what interested me with him. I think I put him up as a saver bet. He was on that price boundary. Was he as short as 6s? Was he put in at 6s? I mean, 6s in a festival handicap hurdle, I'm just like, ugh. I'd rather not. He might have been 8s, which might have annoyed me, because 8s is on that boundary. Mentally, it's a weird thing, I know, but psychologically, kind of 8, 10 to 1 or bigger in these races is my starting point. In any case, he was 13 lengths behind Sancro in a novice grade 3. He was 3.5 lengths in novice grade 2. So that indicated ability and a touch of class, a turn of pace, and getting beat by 13 lengths by Sanko at the form he was in that season obviously wasn't a bad thing. He then run well in a big field handicap herd at Leopardstown, keeping on well, running well. I mean, he arrived in form, actually, with a touch of class, and his handicap mark had stayed the same. Davy Russell jumped back on. I mean, he just looks solid given how everything had been running, so it wasn't surprised that he was the place he was in the market. But again, you can see some of the factors there. And finally, to finish up, as I just tick past 20 minutes, but I hope you found this of some interest. Mo Hayed for Dan Skelton at the time, who I wasn't anywhere near. You can't pick all of the handicap winners at Cheltenham. If I could average 2 a year, I would bite your hand off for that right now, given generally the odds that you can get on the odd one. What do I want to say about this one? A bit of a different profile, and maybe this might be the profile which has more success this year. We shall see. The first thing to note from memory, Dan Skelton, as he did with the name of his horse, Born Survivor, was it? Or possibly I'm making that up, but he has won Cheltenham handicaps before with horses returning after a break and him freshening them up. I think that is possibly one of his MOs. And certainly this season that might not be a bad thing, so that would be interesting to watch. But a break clearly wasn't a problem for this one, and he'd run well after a break before. Clearly he'd had a few more runs than some, and he'd had a few more handicap runs, but he was what you could call battle hardy, and 80 days ago he was 6 lengths behind Boo Dare in a grade 1 at Kempton in a small field that probably wouldn't have suited. The Doncaster small field may not have suited this. Cheltenham one he probably needed to run. Of course, this was possibly the aim all season, but his mark hadn't changed for 6 lengths behind Boo Dare. And he did show some ability there. I mean, he ran well. Obviously, Boo Dare hacked up, but again, that was an indication, graded form. Then he had big field form, Air, where he kept on. But Air was a bit more of a speed track, certainly over that distance that may not have suited. He'd run well in this race last year. He was only, what, 4 or 5 pounds higher. I can't remember if Bridget was claiming this day. Yes, she was claiming 3, which would have helped. And a big field, the connections, the people, Skelton, Nichols, generally might be now the place to focus on for the Brits in handicap hurdles. Hobbs might make a comeback, we shall see. But yeah, you can see, he had solid big field form in various places, including at the festival, including at the Ayr Scottish Grand National Festival in a handicap. He also had a splash of graded form, trained by Skelton, had a break, looked handicap mark would be fine, we knew he'd handle conditions. So that was one for more of the kind of been there and done it to a point, but he was still open to some progress in handicaps at this time. So that's a kind of slightly different profile to some of those Irish horses that I've focused on. And of course, in any race, there's going to be a mixture of those. And everything I've discussed above and in this video isn't a surefire way to certainly find banker winners in festival handicap hurdles. But hopefully, within that, it's given you some kind of ideas and something to think about. And hopefully, this blog post and this video may help you find some handicap hurdle winners or decent price placed horses this year. In any case, with any luck, you've enjoyed the content. Thanks for watching, and until the next time, this is Josh saying take care and bye for now.